Florida has a new standard that will teach black people benefited from slavery because it was a useful skills. What useful skills are they referring to?
That agenda by Governor DeSantis, this new Florida state mandate educational curriculum requirement that the enslavement of African people be treated as if it was a benevolent institution that afforded us some useful skills is absolutely disrespectful. It is outright untrue. It is an insult to African people. And I'm not surprised that they're doing this, because one thing about white people, when they smell blood, they go for the kill. And America is more anti-black today than any time since the 1960s. So if black people are going to stand by and let white people trample all over their self-respect and their dignity and their human rights, that's exactly what they're going to do. But I also think we have to keep an eye on the White House, because I find it interesting that President Joe Biden hasn't said much or done much about this. Although education is not a federal right, it is not a constitutional right, but it is a state right. And as a state right, the federal government has an obligation to make sure the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause is upheld wherever the states guarantee a right to a free education. So I am of the position that the slanderous inclusion of slavery as having been beneficial because it taught skills, which is easily refutable as an untruth, I believe that that could be fought against. I believe that that could be struck down because it is harmful and it is dangerous to teach that to black children. In fact, it does the very thing that the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision sought to undo, and that was to eliminate the harm caused to black children by segregation. Now you have harm being caused to black children by virtue of this new mandated curriculum. So I'm wondering why the Justice Department, I'm wondering why the Secretary of State, I'm wondering why President Joe Biden himself has not taken this up as a 14th Amendment issue. In fact, what the president could do with the stroke of a pen is tell Governor DeSantis and any other governor in America where there is a law that forbids the teaching of slavery or racism, if this is what you want to do, if you want to teach that slavery was beneficial because it taught skills, then guess what? We're going to cut all your federal funding. We're going to cut your special ed money. We're going to cut your Title I money. We're going to cut your JROTC money. We're going to cut all of your federal money because this is discriminatory education, which is not allowed under the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause.
Do you believe there's a possibility of the standard becoming nationwide in the future?
I do. I think there's a possibility of the standard becoming nationwide. We already have a growing standard where states are not allowing slavery to be taught and they're not allowing racism to be taught. So you already see that the climate is already there. As far as I'm concerned, it's pretty much a standard anyway. But again, I believe that the Democratic Party is co-signing this behavior by not pushing back with threats with regard to elimination of federal funding. Their funds should be snatched if this is what they want to do.
Over the last decade, especially during COVID, schools have struggled with finding teachers. Now I understand schools can't find principals. Why are people avoiding leadership roles in public schools?
Why are people avoiding leadership roles in public schools? I would say that the move by educators and principals away from the schoolhouse predates COVID. I would say COVID has probably intensified that exodus out of the schoolhouse by principals and teachers. I also think during the COVID quarantine period, so many opportunities arose for educators to become homeschoolers themselves, that a lot of them saw that they could make more money homeschooling 5 or 6 children in their basement than they could being a full-time teacher in a public school. We also have to keep in mind that a lot of educators are not original educators. They came to the schoolhouse out of a need for employment. You know, they were laid off from corporate America. They were laid off from the private sector. So they came into the school simply to find an economic opportunity. There was no love or commitment there for our children. And so I would argue that once a better hustle comes along, they take it. So they were never in love with educating black kids in the first place. You know, it's unfortunate because you even have black educators and principals leaving the school as well. Now, if they were leaving to build their own independent black schools, that would be a positive thing. Some of them are, but many are finding employment in other sectors. And it's hard to criticize them because I know how difficult it can be when you care to teach or to lead in a public school in this country.
And that's what I learned, that those who really care don't stay.
Yeah, it's tough. Because, and also they get overlooked a lot for higher level positions. So when I was with the school district of Philadelphia, and of course I hear about this across the country, other districts I've worked with and professionals I work with, if you are a good teacher and you're black, it works against your professional advancement because they want to keep you in the classroom. Whereas a white person will come in with not even having half of your experience, and after 2 years, they're downtown making 3 times as much money as you. And you're trapped in the school because you are good at what you do, so they want to keep you there forever. So unfortunately, it's difficult for good black principals and good black teachers to get promotions for that reason. They send the white people downtown because they know they don't care, so they give them, ironically, the better administrative job, and they trap you in the schoolhouse. That's not fair. But the bigger question for the black teacher and the black principal, why have you not organized and come together to build an independent black educators union? We don't have one. And I'm not aware of there ever having been a movement away from the American Federation of Teachers, away from the National Education Association, to build an independent black teachers union. We have independent black unions for almost every profession. Teaching is one of America's oldest profession. The only thing older is the preacher, the church, because the church gave birth to education. Why haven't black teachers and principals come together to build their own union? And I think the biggest reason why is we're comfortable being led by white folks. Even though the teachers unions do not fight for black teachers the way they fight for white teachers, you regularly see black teachers get fired for reasons you will never see a white teacher get fired. But it's kind of like the Democratic Party. As long as we have something and it's led by white people, we feel comfortable with the get along to go along.
What will be the future of public education in America with this situation?
Well, I think the future for public education was dire even before COVID and even before the mass exodus of educators and principals. Charter schools were founded to defund public schools. Now you even have the voucher system, which is also founded to defund public schools. The problem with the elimination of public school, and let's keep in mind that most Americans are not in support of tax dollars going towards public education. And the reason for that is because the U.S. Constitution does not mention the word education. It does not give anybody's child a right to learn. So many people are wondering, why am I paying money for a service that my Constitution doesn't require? Most white people who have children, those children go to private schools. So Democrats and Republicans are interested in shutting down the United States Department of Education, which has only been around since the 80s. And if they had it their way, it would be going tomorrow. The problem, though, is America's false reputation around the world that suggests she's a leader in education. And since most people see education as the passport to a better future, how can America, being the so-called land of the free and the birthplace of democracy, how can she be against public education? It doesn't look right for America's image. So from a foreign relations agenda, from an international relations agenda, America has to find a way to get rid of public education, free public ed, without affecting their image abroad. That's number one. Domestically, the biggest issue with eliminating public school is what do you do with millions of white women who make up the teaching corps? These are voters and these are donors. How do you eliminate education when these women are the people you need at the ballot box in November? No politician wants to be in office when public school gets destroyed, because I can guarantee you, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or anything in between, if you are a governor, a mayor, a council person, a state rep, a U.S. congressperson, when public school is destroyed, you will not be getting reelected.